Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation radio program. I'm Clint Richardson. It is the 19th of February, 2014, and after yesterday's broodful rant about our president being dictator, and we'll continue that on Friday, because Sir Vinny Eastwood is here today to grace us with his New Zealand presence and that crazy accent. Well, we have the crazy accent, I suppose. So we're going to take a little lighter today. What Vinny Eastwood, I think he used to call it the lighter side of genocide or something like that. Welcome to the show, Vinny.
Thanks very much, Clint. It's quite nice to be here. Am I a bit loud? I suppose for a protester, I frickin' well should be.
Well, you're not on your blowhorn, are you?
No. Although I am somewhat of a blowhard, and I don't need an amplification device for that, unfortunately.
Very nice. Well, your website got a kind of an interesting thing going on over there. It's guerrilla media. Well, it's actually real guerrilla media. What's the story behind that? What happened with the guerrilla media franchise that you had to change it to the real guerrilla media?
Well, there's a number of people with the name guerrilla media. None of which are truther kind of, news platforms and what have you, the kind I was intending. I have guerrillamedia.co.nz, but the person who helped me set that one up kind of bailed out on me and left me in the total lurch, and the website looks like crap, so I had to do a new one. And this dude named Pete Santilli approached me, and he said he really liked the name. So I told him the idea of guerrilla media and all of the protocols to how to run this little network idea of helping people get their voices out and what have you. And after he got the idea from me, he stole it, started up guerrillamedianetwork.com, filled it full of psychopath scumbags who just lie to everybody, and told everybody it was his idea. So I had to do realguerrillamedia.com instead, basically.
Very nice.
Is that succinct enough?
Yeah, that was pretty good. I see you got Dean Wigington and Susanne Posel of Occupy Corporatism. Who's Randall Carlson?
Randall Carlson's a Freemason dude. He looks at ancient extinctions, like that mammoth in the New York Museum of Natural History that was frozen solid with food still in its mouth and stomach. Well, he's done a lot of research into that kind of phenomenon and talked about massive earth changes and stuff like that. He's a very interesting guy.
Cool. Very, very nice. So, for those that well, I suppose it's probably everybody in the audience mostly, tell us about New Zealand, because, really, we're all... we could say that we're part of the United States of America and that, New Zealand's a foreign country, but in truth, we better get used to it real quick if we're going to let this happen. You're just another state in the United Nations, just like the United States is another state in the United Nations. So we're really one big globalist happily family, whether we like to admit it or not. Tell us about New Zealand.
Well, for Americans, this might come as a shock to you, but it's actually really similar to America. You know how from the east coast to the west you have all these variations in the landscapes? You got temperate climates, hot sun deserts, and there's forests and sort of jungle type areas, and like Florida Keys and what have you. You have like almost as much variation in the type of landscape as you could possibly imagine. New Zealand's very similar to that, except it's a small island chain. So you got the couple of islands there, the North Island and South Island. Apparently we've got real creativity here in New Zealand in terms of naming stuff. And and down below that there's Stewart Island, which is even further south. Now, the South Island, if you're ever going to go on a tourist trek around New Zealand, skip the North Island, okay? Just skip it. It's just not worth it, because the South Island is just pretty. Okay, like that's where all the Lord of the Rings stuff was shot, pretty much. All those nice mountains and tussock grasses and rocks across the strewn across plains and mountains right up against the ocean with snow camps on them and things like that. It's just unbelievable. I did a 2-week tour a while back when I was a younger man, and I took a whole bunch of these photos and then just lost them all. And it was quite gutting, But anyway, Geopolitically speaking, New Zealand's a really good test case, especially for the New World Order people, because we've got about maybe 3-4 million people plus, and we are all, Westerners speaking English and whatnot. So let's say a globalist scumbag kingpin like, I don't know, David Rockefeller comes out and he says,
well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have all the vaccines forcibly given to all the school children and whatnot. But I think maybe the Americans will get really effed off with that, so let's just try it on the Kiwis first.
And the Kiwis have we have a saying, and you usually hear this phrase just before an accident happens. Oh, she'll be right. And that's basically what happens. Nobody in this country gives a frack about anything. It's very similar to America in almost every single way. Got a dumbed down population, an overbearing state, a corrupted food supply, a dumbed down corrupted media, bankers for politicians. And we spray poison chemtrails all over the place. And yeah, basically, if you were to kind of surmise it like this, take everything that's messed up about America and copy paste it.
Concentrate it.
All right, so when you come to New Zealand from America, you'll feel like you're home.
Gosh darn it. And here I was thinking I'd get to visit like trolls and elves and stuff, but I guess not.
Oh, there's plenty of trolls here, but they're mostly on Facebook.
Yeah. So, it's ironic that you say that because it seems like all the quote unquote first world countries have their, if you will, Aboriginal, some form of tribes. We have our Native American Indians that of course we just trample it all upon and stole their lands and everything else. And, just really have really, you've got your Australian
Aborigines and
Aboriginals. You've got, what did you call them?
We've got Maori. You know how you got mouldy bread? It's kind of pronounced very similar to that. They roll the R, but it sounds like an LD, so it's mouldy. Except it's with an R. It's not quite pronounced that way. And by the way, if there's any Māori people listening, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get across a point here. All right, and
it's just ironic.
I'm not saying that they're fungus, okay?
Yeah, well, it's ironic because they kind of had it right in the first place, and the reason things are so screwed up really is because we've trampled on sort of the laws of nature, and that's kind of what they were following. So
well, actually, they kind of were following the law of the jungle to a certain extent. The very first Western explorer that discovered New Zealand was a man named Abel Tasman. That's what the Tasman Sea between New Zealand and Australia is named after. First encounter he had with Māori was a whole bunch of warboats coming out to try and kill him. And so he's like, "Frank this, I'm not going on the land, I'm getting the hell out of here." And he did, and it was probably a smart move because he didn't get exterminated or eaten. And, and then there was Captain Cook, who was the first person to actually make landfall here on behalf of the British, and his first longboat full of sailors that he sent aboard disappeared, and they found them later being eaten by the local Māori. So they... one of those things. It's like, well, Well,
if the Māori are listening, then tell them they're my heroes.
Yeah. I mean,
because I'd like to see more of that around here when the tax collectors come. We could eat them.
It would actually be quite amusing, just to see what a tax collector would taste like, I must say. Anyway, after that happened, it turned out that the Māori were actually incredibly powerful warriors. Like, they were probably the strongest warrior culture known at the time in the world. And, it was quite interesting because they taught everybody how to fight and had a big war. And we'll talk about more of that after the break.
All right. Let's let you run the show. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back with Vinny Eastwood. There's many corporations that are nations out there, New Zealand being one of them. And our guest today is, I believe, from the Auckland area, Vinny Eastwood. Vinny, his main website is...
TheVinnyEastwoodShow.com.
There you go. There always has to be a the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and then RealGorillaMedia.com. Very interesting. So I want to give a shout-out.
My YouTube channel is also very important, Mr. News Gorilla Media. If you just search Vinny Eastwood on YouTube, you'll find that one as well.
Oh, yeah. You've been really prolific. I mean, people certainly are very familiar with you, I'm sure, at least most, with your big blowhorn. Bullhorn. Just give a shout out to the chat room, corporationnation.chatango.com, and someone was saying in the chat room that you guys are getting a lot of fracking over there in New Zealand.
Yeah, that is true. I interviewed a Māori activist, Megan Manuka, about this maybe last year or the year before. They all kind of blur in together. I'm kind of like in my fourth year of radio now. And yeah, it's quite nasty. There are like 99 something fracking sites in New Zealand, and for each of them, I think they need 50 litres of water per second.
Yes.
In order to do that kind of stuff. So it's like we averaged it out, and the one thing on the one yearly contract or something like that, they're using like 250 something million litres of water, which I think if you cut that in half, that's like 50, 60, about 75 million gallons, and that's per site. And they're not bringing the water in. No. They're actually diverting rivers, which sustain communities downstream and stuff like that, so that they can pollute the water table with fracking chemicals.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? We have the same thing here with the LP Reserve up here, where we call them the water thieves. For people that don't know, whenever you hear that your reservoir is drying up, or that your rivers are somehow not full of water. Yeah, same thing here. They are the water thieves, and they will blame it, of course, like global warming. They will blame it on people. People use too much water. You must conserve water. You must conserve water. Meanwhile, the oil and gas companies are stealing it all, and you don't know about it. It's pretty horrible, and it's. Yeah, I mean, and the idea is that you have to replace you leave these giant holes in the ground. And you replace the mineral content, the oil, whatever, with water. And, of course, water is thinner, less dense than the material that's being taken out of the ground. And eventually that it's a temporary solution. The water's going to leak out. And you're going to be left with a bunch of holes in the ground. Now, some people say that this is one of the most dangerous things ever, because you've got basically this underground gas chamber that if one of them got lit on fire, the whole underground system would basically explode like a manhole cover in New York City. If you've ever seen those explode, it's pretty impressive. Yeah. So it's pretty messed up the way it's great how they blame us for the water shortages though.
Oh, they blame us for everything. I mean, it's like the psychopathic mentality is nothing's ever my fault, it's always everybody else's fault, even though I deliberately do it. I can lie so effectively to myself that I can even pass a lie detector test. So, they just don't freaking care. That's what I've discovered. And when it comes to the media is covering this fracking thing up like nobody's business. Have you noticed that? There's like no reports coming out of really any significance about this kind of phenomenon of fracking, which kind of makes me really annoyed. Speaking of the media, I just got kicked out of the Kiwi Journalists Association today. Which, ironically, a few hours after I told them, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just going to stop posting in this group now. It's just like, New Zealand journalists are like, that's not good enough, he's not going to post here, we also don't want him to have any possibility of participating. And then incidentally, they then run a post on the page saying, we kicked Vinny out because he's flaming all the time and in flagrant disregard for bloody journalism and it's just like, look, I'm sorry that I'm not a douchebag who's on denial of reality, who thinks that discussing sport and wanky bollocks is actually something that interests me. Okay, I'm sorry that I'm not one of you.
Well, I like how you refer it to all forms of scumbaggery.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about scumbaggery is that it's all encompassing. I came up with the theory of fractal scumbaggery. Like the fractal universe theory is everything's just a smaller version or a larger version of something, and as soon as you zoom in, it starts to, like, a whole new world starts to come into light. And that's what scumbaggery is like to me. Every little instance of scumbaggery you start to look into, like all new worlds of scumbaggery, whole new universes of scumbaggery start to come to light. And this is the first time I was actually ever invited, actually probably the second time, that I was invited to be participate in anything that mainstream media people get invited to. The first time I basically was at a bar, and these journalists were sitting around, patting themselves on the back because they managed to raise $500 Okay, these are people that get paid like $1,000 a week kind of thing. They managed to raise $500 for the families of 16 or something journalists in the Philippines who got executed, and they raised $500 to support their families. And they're all like, yeah, aren't we good people? It's like, dude, I once made $500 by myself at a protest selling DVDs to people, and then I took that money just to pay my rent so I could get 5 people who'd had their families assassinated by government agents and stuff like that on the air to tell their story by my frickin' self. You're all pathetic scum. Okay, I'm going to throw them all under the bus here. Apart from those other little ones, there's people in the media who are good at heart, but they just do their job, and their job is to do evil, more or less, to cover up the truth, to lie to people, to manipulate people. And what I noticed is whenever I'm commenting or doing anything in this Facebook group, you get this arrogance. Like they know what reality is. One of the admins referred to the public as the unwashed masses. Like, no kidding. I've got the screenshot. It's on my Facebook wall. You can go and check it out, bro. They literally think they're better than everybody else. They think they're smarter than everybody else. They think they know everything that's in reality, and anything that comes out of my mouth is instantly treated with hate, disdain, and condescendence. And I was just like, they're gonna, and they're always insulting me, right? Ad hominem attacks, you get that kind of stuff among people. And then, of course, all of those people that ad hominem attacked me and what have you, none of them got kicked out for breaching the group protocols because all the admins were scum too. So
it's a club.
It's a club.
It's certainly a club.
I got kicked out of a clique of morons who deny reality and hate truth. Dodge that bullet.
Yeah, I mean, is it a badge of honor or is it an insult? It's hard to tell.
Well, when I interviewed John Perkins, he said he'd been interviewed thousands of times on many, many different radio shows, and he says there's many people who do what you do, Vinny, but you're the best, right? And it's coming from frickin' John Perkins, the guy who wrote The Economic Hitman. He's been in dozens and dozens of documentaries. So many documentaries that he can't even remember which ones he's been in, kind of thing. And he said, I'm the best. And I'm like, whoa. And routinely I'll interview people who've been on, like, George Norrie. And they'll tell me, like, Vinny, oh my God, the interview with you was so great, and it was way better than George Norrie and that kind of thing. So I had to remind myself of that, actually, because when you're being attacked by people who are scum, it doesn't matter, because the brain doesn't have a firewall. It's actually very difficult to just kind of block and ignore things and not let them into your consciousness. So I just kind of had to remind myself, I'm a good person, I'm a good radio show host, I care about people, I do my job well, and I serve humanity very, very well, and nothing these people can say has any relevance.
Very nice. Stay with us for Vinny Eastwood. More of Vinny Eastwood when we get back. We're talking with Vinny Eastwood from New Zealand. VinnyEastwoodShow.com. So, Vinny, there's a lot of talk about the media, the mainstream media, of course, the ABC, NBC, Fox, all that stuff, CNN.
Well, I find it very interesting how it's like CBS, PBS, and all of these, and they all the media outlets tend to end with the 2 letters BS. I'm not making it up.
That's true. It's a good point. Well, there's a sense out there. And I don't think most of the audience would agree that there's a certain amount of irrelevance in the media. But at the same time, I think we have to be aware that while it appears irrelevant, what the media is really, really for, in my opinion, is what you might call disclosure to gain sort of a consent, if you will. In other words, it's a disclosure of some things in order to basically get people to get used to the tyranny, to get used to the concept of chipping, to get used to all these things. So that when the time comes for the actual thing to happen, there's a bit of, they've been reporting that for a while. The
media in that sense is kind of like an intellectual turkey baster, They're not the ones that are going to roast you, but they'll prepare you so that when you do get roasted, it's going to be very nice for the elite to feast off.
Yes. Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. They've certainly been fattening us up, haven't they, for the feast?
I know. I feel like frickin' Hansel and Gretel. Like I've got to leave a trail of 9/11 flyers behind me to make my way back out of the bloody mainstream media apparatus. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What's wrong with these people? I mean,
but I mean, when you say it's irrelevant, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about how the amount of stories that come out of the media don't actually have any consequence. In other words, the word is boring. Okay? Me, I like to look at scumbaggery, full-on, hardcore corruption. I like to look at things that actually really affect people, like toxic vaccines and things of that nature, which you know a lot about, Clint, and how global warming is a hoax, and the chemtrail contamination, These things are actually interesting to me because they actually have relevance, they actually mean something, and they actually directly affect people's lives, regardless of whether or not you hear about them, ergo it is important for people to hear about them. And the media doesn't cover any of that to a large degree. They're always like, oh well, it needs to be absolutely 100% critical and so on and so forth. It's like, dude, okay, here's how the journalistic practice seems to work. If you see somebody breaking into a car, okay, you don't report that they broke into the car. Why? Because you didn't have a camera on you at the time and you can't prove it. All right, that's the kind of thing. Unless the evil scumbags who are committing the scumbaggery actually come out and admit it, or they are so terrible at covering their tracks that the mainstream media are capable of reporting it. I mean, those things basically become irrelevant. Every now and again, the mainstream media will come up and actually expose something really, really big. But what they'll do is it's kind of like a cream on the cake. Like they'll only show you that very, very top layer. You don't know what the cake's actually made of. That's how they do it. And there's word limits, and there's also defamation suits and things of that nature that they have to contend with as well. But people like us, because we're so small and irrelevant and what have you, apparently they don't worry about us criticising them and telling the truth about them and presenting evidence and what have you, because everybody's got this wonderful thing called cognitive dissonance. Oh, he's saying this thing and it challenges my paradigm and my beliefs, therefore it's not true.
Yeah, it's that's one of the most powerful tools. I mean, that is marketing to an extent. Cognitive dissonance is marketing. I mean, it's the very backbone of it, really.
Yeah, it's the chief defense mechanism of people who love the establishment. And I was thinking about slaves and slave scum. You know what the difference is between a slave and slave scum?
Do tell.
Slaves get taxed, and they really don't like it. And they complain about it, and they try to change it. Slave scum love being taxed, love being bossed around, and tell all the slaves that they should quit whining.
Yeah. Good point.
There's a hell of a lot of slave... This is my problem. There's a hell of a lot of slave scum out there, okay? And they don't realise that they're slave scum.
Well, and that's what I say about pensioners. I get a lot of flack for this, but I say, look, your taxpayers are paying for your pensions. Over $1 trillion goes towards pensions just in the federal pension system. It's like in California, it's maybe 20 billion or so goes out of taxpayer money, and those are the people. Those pensioners are the very people who will cry the loudest about $140 billion that actually makes its way into the poor, the hands of the poor through welfare.
Hey,
right? Those are the loudest criers of the hand-me-down, poor class. Oh, those poor, they're ruining the No, it's actually you, pensioners. It's actually you who love the fact that everyone else is paying for your pensions.
Yeah. That reminds me of California. They had citizens-initiated referenda, and the citizens always voted against getting taxed, but they never voted to reduce the amount of services, so the state went bankrupt. You gotta love mob rule, especially when the mob's a bunch of morons.
Well, they count on that, I mean, who says that wasn't part of the plan? The whole bankruptcy scheme that's happening now.
Well, actually, Clint, you probably know the answer to that question. Can you name me a single country in the world currently that isn't bankrupt apart from Iran or North Korea?
Well, the true answer is that there's really no such thing, because if you can print money, I mean, how can you be bankrupt? So in reality, the whole bankruptcy thing it's just a power play. It's just a way to build more wealth.
Hey,
by
is bankrupt a mixture of the word banker and corrupt?
Yeah, pretty much. That's. I mean, if you think about it, it's really easy to divide. First of all, you divide the people, the laws that affect people, and you divide the laws that affect government. You say, well, people, if you want to declare a bankruptcy, you have to come ask permission, you have to do all this, you have to jump through hoop number 1, hoop number 2, and if you can get your fat butt through hoop number 3, great, you can declare bankruptcy, and it's going to affect your credit for 7 years, and you're not going to be able to buy a house, and you da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then government says, well, we're bankrupt, period. That's it. We don't need a rule or a law. We don't need. All we have to show on our paperwork is that we basically put all our money into an investment account, and then say we have no money, and therefore we're bankrupt. We hide our savings and pretend that our current monies are all we have, just completely ignoring all of our investments and savings. That's basically what government does. So it's pure scumbaggery, if I may borrow your mantra.
Yeah, and I think this is what the fourth estate, the media, is supposed to be there. Now, I don't know about you, Clint, but I got no journalistic training. You've been trained in mainstream journalism or anything like that? Ever worked for these organizations?
I am not. The closest I came, I was when I was really young. I was a loan by phone officer for Bank of America for about 3 months, and then I was a Hollywood sound designer. That was the closest I got as an inside scumbaggery person that I could get. Yeah,
and I think this actually makes us the ideal candidates to actually be the media, because look at it this way: the media is supposed to do these things like very similar to what Jan Irvin talks about, the trivium. You work out the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and then you do your reporting. Okay, not before then. Media now is just like, who? Or what? Or how? They only ask one question, basically, and then they go off on this random diatribe. And no wonder the whole population's dumb as frack. You know? What was it? George Carlin. Well, thing is, the media is supposed to report the truth, and the public is supposed to think for themselves. I say the media.
Because the courts don't agree with you. The courts said Fox News has no liability to report truth.
Well, then those judges should be arrested.
Truth is, well, yeah, that's the point, though. It's entertainment. That's really what it is. Maybe we have the wrong idea of what news is, because really that's what it is.
Well, the thing is, I know what the news is, but this is what it should be.
Well, yeah. So you're being idealistic. You're saying that it should be more like us.
Well, the thing is, maybe we don't realise this yet, Clint, but we actually are the media now. And the rest of those people, they're not media. They're corporate shill scum.
I'll tell you what. This is how I kind of figured it out. I looked into vaccines, and I looked into the whole credentialism of doctors and medicine, and I said, there's no way I would ever become licensed to practice medicine. Then I looked into law, and I looked at lawyers and attorneys and the Bar Association. There's no way in hell I would sell my soul to be licensed as an attorney. Well, guess what? What do you have to do to become an official journalist? You have to get a press pass. You have to be hired. You have to basically go through the same type of credentialism and get virtually a license to be a journalist. Well, that tells you right there that you probably don't want to go down that route, because it's going to be a for-profit business.
The power to license is the power to destroy. We'll be right back, folks.
Yep, absolutely. Welcome back to the Corporation Nation. With me today is Vinny Eastwood of the Vinny Eastwood Show, syndicated out of New Zealand. I've always, it's one of the few places I didn't get to travel. I worked for the airlines for a while, and so I got to travel for free. And Went all over the place, and New Zealand was on my list, and I just didn't get to go there. I was really disappointed.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of. It reminds me of that scene in Starship Troopers when they get drafted into a new platoon, and they talk about where the platoon been. I know, Outer Rings, Zegama Beach, and he's like, Zegama Beach. I always wanted to go there, and he goes, good luck. It's not there anymore. Whatever New Zealand was back in the day, it's certainly not the same now. In fact, nowhere's the same. Nowhere's the same anymore, is it?
It's true.
I don't know. As a patriot, somebody who loves my country, every time I see certain elements of scumbaggery working their magic on it, I don't know. It's a cross between depression and rage, or just derage. You know. I'm having quite a hard time, actually. Just thinking about the future. You know, when you think about the future, you get anxiety. When you think about the past, you get depressed. And when you're in the now, you're fine. And so naturally, I don't think things are fine. I unfortunately don't find any evidence to prove that I'm wrong. I wish I was, you know. But, you know, the terrible thing about being a conspiracy theorist to a large degree is that every single time you assume something, it turns and you usually assume it's a bad thing, it turns out to be true. Like, I remember I walked in the house one day and my wife tells me, Vinny, there was a truck bomb in Times Square that they got found. And I go, don't worry, baby, it was probably the FBI. And it was.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
well, you know,
they're not even trying to cover it up that well anymore. You know, it's maybe they don't have to. Maybe the vast majority of the population is so dumb that they wouldn't believe the truth even if they saw it.
Well, are you familiar with the report from Iron Mountain?
The report from Iron... No.
You got to read that, man.
I mean,
it lays it out.
Not much of a reader.
It lays it out for you. It lays it out. The necessity of blood sacrifice. It lays it out. It's the most incredible document you'll ever read. They literally say it's like taking a. We had a war economy, economy that supported the war. Now we have a peace economy. The problem is you can't have a government that has a massive military, industrial, corporate complex unless you have a threat of war in times of peace. So you must, therefore, necessarily, through the media, the most important part, show blood sacrifice on television. And it literally tells you how they're going to do it. And that's exactly what they're doing today. That's why that report is so important.
Oh yeah, there's so many reports like this that actually kind of like lay out the groundwork, and we've got a New Zealand equivalent called the Opal File, and that was discovered back in the 70s. It was leaked out, and a friend of mine, Ben Vidgen, he was in military, he was in an artillery intelligence regiment at the time. And he read this and he started talking to all his buddies in the military, and they all called him crazy and so on and so forth. And it's about, well, we're going to come into New Zealand and we're going to take their oil. We're going to impose a banking mafia kind of dictatorship on the place. And we're going to have all these massive surveillance states and everything being set up and blah, 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 blah. Basically, the whole New World Order agenda in a nutshell, but specifically focused on the New Zealand context, but resource grabbing and well, basically tyranny imposition. And of course, when you go and you say that, everybody thinks you're crazy. And then, of course, even 20, 30 years later, you tell people, actually, you do realise that every single thing that I told you about that was in this document came to fruition, right? And they go, yeah. But you're still crazy, and I'm still not going to listen to you or think that you've got credibility.
You do realize you're going through austerity as we speak, just like they said it would be necessary. See, it costs money for tyranny, so you're going to have to go through austerity. You do realize that, right?
Yeah.
You do realize it's happening now.
Yeah. That reminds me of a joke I made on about Berlusconi. You know, he was the Prime Minister of Italy. And he got caught up in the sex scandal, all these young girls and stuff like that. And it's like, how did this old guy get so many really hot, young, attractive Italian women? And I go, it must have been the size of his austerity package.
Oh man, what's
amazing? And apparently, it'll cause inflation and then deflation and then rampant stagflation.
Oh man, I think it's most amazing is that there's. I think that what they do is they keep the balance. They have this political status called unemployment, right? Unemployment, and as long as they can keep the not even the majority necessarily, just enough people that are satisfied with their working conditions, that are making, close to six figures or above, and that are doing jobs that are absolutely worthless to society in general. A lot of them have to do with upkeeping the computer banks to ensure the proper data. The data retrieval, the data collection. I mean, basically, you got a system set up to where there's enough people that will take the jobs that basically put everybody else including themselves, into the tyranny that somehow the system keeps self-perpetuating and keeps going. That's the amazing part, is there's enough people who, aware or not aware of all this, are willing to participate in their own, basically, theme of enslaving themselves. That's
2 words. Learned helplessness. That's it. End of the day, end of the story. People have forgotten how powerful they are, how strong they are, and how much humanity needs them to get out of their own frickin' way and start being who they were born to be, what they were meant to be. This happened to me, and it wasn't a pleasant experience, I can assure you of that. When you have all your family think that you're crazy, and all your friends and everything throughout your entire life basically just disappear, and your money dries up, and you basically got nothing to show for your entire life's work thus far, it's actually quite traumatic. And that's actually kind of part of my philosophy, is that if you are learning something and it's not traumatic at all, it's probably not it's probably not that valuable a lesson,
I know, if your hair's not turning gray and you're not picking out hairs from your beard, then you're probably not reading the right books. It's true.
Yeah,
funny
exactly.
stuff.
You haven't learned anything of value until you've tried to cry yourself to sleep at night, even though nothing even happened to you, and you just learned what happened to somebody else or what's going on at a higher
Vinny,
realm.
Are you truly a sensitive guy under all this?
Totally.
Under this exterior.
Well, this exterior is my sensitivity. I wear my heart on my sleeve and everything, and it's quite important, I think, because if you're not open, you miss things. It's almost like half the reason why humanity's gotten to the point is that we are in now is because people don't give a crap about each other, and that's why my guests enjoy being interviewed by me so much, is because I actually really do care about them, or at least for that period of time. I can't keep up with everybody, sort of thing. I'm interviewing like 5 new people a week for 3 hours a day, plus going on other people's radio shows and what have you. I can't keep up with nothing, but I can care about you just for that few hours that I'm interviewing you, and actually genuinely care, and really try to get to know who it is you are and what it is you do, from a real perspective. And I think we're missing that quite a lot. You have a look at the television shows and movies and a lot of the talk radio and all of the mainstream spectrum, and it seems to be characterized by a lack of empathy and a lack of intelligence, really.
What is reality? Reality TV is basically, hey, how many ways can you harm another person to get ahead? That's basically what reality TV has blossomed.
Exactly. It doesn't talk about like creating real cohesive groups and communities and things of that nature in order to work together. It's actually about everybody working against each other, having no loyalty, and being permeated by scumbaggery.
Well, and actually the loyalty that is, it's like honor among thieves. The loyalty is breeded in scumbaggery. I mean, you're doing it because eventually you're going to harm the people that you're in an allegiance with at the moment. You're scheming the whole time, and of course, behind the scenes, because I'm a Hollywood guy, I got to see some of the footage. I got to see the 24-hour footage of some of these reality shows, and trust me, they stay in hotels on Survivor. It's a bunch of crap. We'll be back, folks. Vinny Eastwood. With me today is my very special guest, Vinny Eastwood of The Vinny Eastwood Show, and that's thevinnyEastwoodshow.com, as well as RealGorillaMedia.com. You know, Vinny, I got the privilege, if you will, of actually seeing some of the unedited footages of Big Brother and Survivor. And like I said, what happens off the scene, off camera, of course, it's a 24-hour camera, but especially at the Big Brother house, what you would see is the producers, the directors, and they had several of them, would come out from behind the corners, and they would basically say, okay, here's what's going to happen. I want you to be sexually attracted to her, and I want you to be sexually attracted to him so that we have a love triangle, and then I want you two to fight against each other. I want you to form a collusion. I want you to be against these people, and I want you to eventually... basically direct the whole thing to get the best possible scenario out of it, the best possible drama, if you will. And in truth, it's like the most boring footage you could ever watch. This guy used to go through it all and just pick out the best parts. And basically the whole thing is designed to show people and to constantly put into their heads, all of these reality shows, again, to put into their heads that the only way you can get ahead is to step on other people's heads. You cannot get ahead without harming or doing something bad. You must scheme and you must work against everyone else in the, basically everything's a competition, even though it's not. And that's what we're being trained on a continuous basis. Every sitcom, everything. It's all designed to destroy any kind of empathetic reaction that we might have.
It's not reinforcing anything that's good for society, is it? And so naturally society starts to fall apart. I don't think people actually realize just how much power and influence over our culture the media has. All right? It's virtually total. If one particular thing is all over the media, what's everybody going to be talking about? What's everybody going to be believing? What's everybody going to be accepting? Yeah. And I think this is probably the reason why I got into the media, is because I see it's probably it's the slow blade that penetrates the shield. You see what I'm saying? In the Dune sense of the word, that's what the media is doing. They're slipping the knife into your mind, and they're doing it very, very slowly, so that whenever it needs to be backed up physically, whether by the militarized police or the scumbaggery government and what have you, hey, everybody will be prepared for it. They're just softening us up, fattening us up like swine.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a way to get a mutual consent of the people, even if they don't consent to whatever it is they're trying to pull. It is a form of indoctrination, a form of informing people what is happening and what is going to happen, and even what has happened. And basically, like you said, what has media become? It's become a reporting agency, not investigative reporting, as much as it is just, okay, a crime was committed, trillions were taken out of the economy, and no one gets in trouble. We're not going to do anything with this information. We're just going to report it. And that's it's a big disclosure, but nothing's being done. No one is actually taking the ball. And similar, and this is why I think it's important for you and for me and anybody else that takes even the smallest of shows out there. It's very important to make it clear that nothing is going to change just by me getting on here and blabbering about things and you listening. Is not going to change things. It actually will take direct action. It will actually, because just because you're hearing it on the media, it doesn't mean action is being taken. Just because Alex Jones talks about it doesn't mean that he's doing anything about it or anybody else.
See, the thing is, the media's got one job, and that's to spread the information so that people can take action that is actually effective without going in blind. Right? That's about it. Everybody tells the media people to solve all their problems for them so that they don't have to, so they can just sit back and continue to be freaking spectators. Stop being a spectator! God, just get off your ass at some point, do something, anything, just don't do nothing. And
we lost Vinny there.
I tell my listeners on a regular basis, if you're planning on taking action, I would much rather you do that than listen to me. I would rather wake up tomorrow without a career, without any listeners, because every single one of them took my advice and went out and started taking action against the New World Order, started exposing scumbaggery in their own little parts, started to take their passion and turn it into something diabolical that the system will really, really hate. That was what I would prefer. I would prefer to be unemployed and dead and have the world saved, rather than have a constant source of employment because the source of employment is scumbaggery, which is incidentally a renewable resource which can never run out. I think the late Bob Chapman, I think was the first time I ever interviewed him, I asked him, do you think that there's any possibility that we could create a system where corruption would never be able to take hold again? You know, like a permanently vigilant, incorruptible system. He said no. Corruption is a what was the word? A perennial thing. It just keeps growing and growing and growing all year round, and you just have to keep cutting it back. You know, your garden doesn't stay weed free because you sit on your ass and do nothing, does it?
No, exactly. We talk about this all the time. You know, you can't a system, especially as corrupt as the United States system, cannot be fixed. I mean, even Walter Burien and all his efforts, and we're going to be trying to really, really put those efforts into fruition here pretty soon. Even his efforts are only as good as taking the corruption and controlling it. I mean, that's really what he is trying to do, is literally to acknowledge the corruption, first of all, because no one wants to acknowledge it. Secondly, harness it, pass laws that say corruption is actually wrong and evil and will be punished, which we don't have at the moment because everything seems to be legal. All he's doing is actually really harnessing the corruption to try to get the people to finally benefit from their own taxpayer money that they spend. Right now, there is no benefit. There is no tax benefit. I mean, it's just the bare minimum. You know, people are starving on the streets. So the concept of fixing an already corrupt system, to me, is a ridiculous one as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like when your computer's kind of frozen, you don't sit there and wait for it to unfreeze. You hit the reset button, don't you?
Sure. Just it's kind of what the Declaration of Independence alludes to, which is to abolish that government. But
well, the people have the rights to throw off such government, whether violently or otherwise. And this is the thing. How many rules do you think the elite are going to follow? What lengths do you think it is to which they will not go in order to enslave and exterminate everybody? The answer is obviously none. There's a realization that I had is that the measurement of how good somebody is the extent to which they will restrain themselves. And the measurement by which you can measure evil is how little they restrain themselves.
Well, good point. I mean, I guess to me, what it takes is actually going and reading the U.S. Code, because when you actually read the code, you find out, hey, this is actually not law. This is actually the blueprint for how to enslave. I mean, it's literally. All the stuff that you would think is unlawful is actually listed as lawful. It's either exempt from the law, or it's just there, sitting there. It's like an instruction book on how to control and how to harm. It's really frightening when you actually read the code.
Yeah, but I always found it funny that the word lawful rhymes with the word awful.
Yeah. All right, folks, stay with us. My guest today, Vinny Eastwood of the Vinny Eastwood radio program. Welcome again, sir. So I guess
I'm having fun, by the
wrap
way.
This up. Yeah, it's good times, man. You're always fun. You can't help it.
You know, I really can't. You know, I'm just relentlessly enjoyable. There's just no escape. You know, I can't turn it off. I was telling one of my listeners the other night, and I was like, "I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I just entertain myself. You know, I'm a broadcaster. I'm just all I do. You know, give me a microphone and I entertain myself for hours on end. You know, it's kind of like you give a child.
And hopefully somebody listens.
Yeah, I mean, see, me and a microphone is like a child and a Rubik's cube. You know, it just never ends.
Well, like I said, I mean, your catchphrase used to be was it the lighter side of genocide or
yeah. Well, and there's a second part of that catchphrase is because in a world so full of chaos and madness, if you lose your sense of humor, you'll go friggin' nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Have you noticed that it happens to a lot of us, actually, Clint, don't you think? Once you start looking into scumbaggery and terrifying things and horrible stuff and what have you start to lose your sense of humour, and then you start getting really rude and angry and bitter with people all the time, and you basically just turn into the very same evil that you wound up starting to fight against.
Yeah, it can happen. I've seen it happen, certainly. I've tried very hard not to let it affect it. Well, what it boils down to is I try very hard to not let it affect my false attempts to fit in at parties. You know what I mean? I mean, I still have to function in society somewhat, and unfortunately that means sometimes dumbing my own self down a little bit because no one wants to hear what
it's almost like I can't actually do that. It's like if I'm going to go out partying and stuff like that, I'm either look, when people are under the influence, it doesn't matter what they're taking, whether they're stoned, drunk, tripping balls on ecstasy or acid or whatever, they're a hell of a lot more open to new ideas and more to the point, deep and meaningful discussions and things, and those are the kind of discussions that I like. Maybe because I've based my career on having these kind of things. In fact, that reminds me, when I was 19, a friend of mine criticised me. He said, "Vinny, you know what your problem is?" And I go, "What?" And he says, "You try to force good conversation on people." I was like, "My bad."
Yeah, I mean, you're basically cock blocking. I mean, that's right. You're interrupting the New World Order dating sequence. Basically.
Yeah. Ignoramus interruptus.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, that was really good. I'm going to keep using that. Ignoramus interruptus. In fact, that'd be a good name for a radio show, don't you think? Well,
that is the radio. Have you come to the same sort of conclusion as I'm just curious? Because, at first, I think everybody starts, when they start understanding some of the concepts and what's actually happening to them, how they're enslaved, all that, everybody wants to scream it from the rooftop. And basically everybody wants to scream it in a way that is towards a group as opposed to an individual. We're kind of hitting on this earlier. And what I've discovered is that does no good. I mean, it basically creates more ignorance because there is no one-to-one interaction. There's no heartfelt conversation when you're actually trying to explain, like you say, with your guests, you actually really try to, hit it home with them. So, and I've really realized, especially lately, that there is no, revolution. There is no group revolution. There's only revolution of the mind. Well, unfortunately, that's one mind at a time. And so,
which makes mass media almost irrelevant, doesn't it?
Well, it seems to. But I'm hoping to maybe people like you and me and others can change that and actually try. I don't know. It's a frustration, and yet all this technology and everything. It's both the culprit and possibly the savior of the mass mind melding.
Well, I think, what was it? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. What's interesting is that we're in the land of the asleep and we're awake, and we're certainly not kings. That saying is BS, man. It's a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the land of the lies, the man who knows the truth is even worse. Is even worse off, because at least he can't even enjoy the illusion of being happy.
Yeah, there is no being put back into the Matrix, is there?
I mean, I'm quite. The best that you can do is be able to live with yourself. When I was a young kid, I was like, I think I was drinking on a Friday night. I think I might have been 17, 18 or something. Underage drinking is really cool. Kids do it. No, I'm kidding. And one of my friend's dads was dying of emphysema. He had like about 6 months to live. He said, I'll just give you a piece of advice my dad gave me. As a man, you have to stare in the mirror every day and shave. Well, some of us don't because, they're pretty unkempt. But if you can still look at yourself in the mirror and you're not disgusted by what you see, you're doing all right. I look at myself in the mirror and I go, whoa, there's this really awesome activist looking back at me, somebody who actually helps people who've had family members murdered by agents of the US government. Somebody who helps people who have been locked in mental institutions for saying 9/11 was an inside job. Somebody who gives a voice to these people who have experienced so much pain and suffering, and nobody listens to them. And I feel very privileged to be the man that I see in that mirror.
That's a good point. I mean, we joke around about being contemptuous, basically, to most of the public, but that's really not the case. I mean, it's really a deep desire to bring people back to sanity and reality, and see what the heck's happening to them. When you see that someone is enslaved and they don't know it, it's very. Well, when you see a whole population that is enslaved, it's a very disturbing thing. You can joke about it. We can call them names. We can call them sheeple. We can do all these things. But in reality, it's a deep-seated care, and that's the big difference. It really is. I mean, like I said, you'll probably tell a joke now, but it really does come from a empathetic place.
Yeah, and I do think that this is. I don't know. It's like holding hands with people who are falling off a cliff. You just get dragged down with them, and I think that's what happens when you get into this movement and you try to help people. In fact, here's another thing, and it's like layers of depression. So let's say there's 100 layers of depression and anxiety that you've got to get over in order to become a balanced truther. All right, just for the sake of argument. Firstly, you get into it and you go, "Wow, this person woke me up," and then you find out that person's actually a bit of a scumbag who's screwed over many people, and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't. What do I do now? You know, my heroes that I put up on a pedestal have fallen off of that pedestal that I put them on, and they've crushed me." And so that filters out a lot of people. A lot of people just get depressed and then just go, "Oh, the truth movement's completely corrupt and it's stupid and what have you, and I'm not going to participate in it anymore. So I'm going to go to my slave job. That's much better. You know, it's a way better idea. You know."
Stay a house slave.
You know, and so for the stronger of us, you get over that and you're like, "Oh my god, maybe it was a bad idea to put people up on pedestals in the first place. Maybe I should actually start doing stuff myself. Maybe I should have some self-respect and whatnot. That way I don't leave it all up to everybody else and take some individual responsibility."
My God, this is heresy. Heresy, pure. Well, Vinny, always a pleasure to be in your most humble presence.
You know, actually, I've never been accused of being humble. I can't see what, you know. I don't know, like, I don't know. People lack a crisis in confidence. You know, Muhammad Ali was always talking about, "I'm the best you've ever seen, you know, I'm going to be dancing, you know." and Bruce Lee, the same thing, you know. Two guys, totally full of themselves, totally reckon they were the best at what they do, and totally frickin' were.
And the next thing you know, you're looking up from them from the mat.
Yeah, and yeah. See, that's kind of me. It's actually a trait of what Thomas Sheridan calls benign narcissism. All right, narcissism's really, really bad because you love yourself and you don't really care about anybody else. But a benign narcissist loves themselves and cares about other people, and ironically believes in themselves enough to actually help those other people that they care about. It's a slight difference, but you know, I'll take what I can get.
Well, you know, to know him is to love him. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. We.
I was just talking with my mate Will Ryan over the break on Facebook, and we're hosting this big protest on Saturday here to get Len Brown, who's the mayor of Auckland, mayor of like 1.4 million people, largest city in the country. It was an Agenda 21 takeover, more or less, if you want to get technical about it. But he's apparently been quite corrupt. He's sleeping around with Asian burlesque dancer chick and stuff like that. Actually having sex with her in particular rooms of the council building. And because I'm an extremist conspiracy theorist, and a couple of other former mayoral candidates and what have you are going to be speaking there, people are using this as an excuse to say it's all completely crazy. So we've got people who are left-wing and people who are right-wing coming to speak, and that's a reason why you should never listen to us, because we're left-wing or right-wing and we're all coming together, so therefore none of us are correct and we're all crazy. All right, that's the logic.
So let me get this straight. You're a benign narcissist, and you're going after just a narcissist?
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, actually, I'm going after psychopaths. I think somebody was actually talking to me about this, and they go, "Well, if you're a narcissist, why are you going after psychopaths?" And I say, "Well, because they're my natural enemy." It's kind of like if you're a black person and you don't steal stuff and what have you, black people who do steal stuff are your natural enemy because they make you look bad. Yeah? I don't want to use that as a racist example and what have you, but the basic thing is true. How you define yourself is how you differentiate yourself from the other people who are just like you but have notable differences. And I feel that's kind of like it. Like I'm a non-psychopathic narcissist who really hates psychopathic narcissists. So because all psychopaths are narcissists. But not all narcissists are psychopaths, and that's the important difference here.
Well, when is your protest?
This Saturday. I'm going to be.
Where do people find details on that?
Oh, shoot! I'm so terrible. I'm like one of the speakers there, and I've got. I'm bringing all the sound equipment and whatnot, but I can't even freaking remember where it is. If you just Google Len Brown Stand Down, or the details are on my YouTube channel, actually. So if you search Len Brown on my YouTube channel, you should be able to find it. There's a video there by former mayoral candidate Stephen Berry that I produced for him. In fact, I'll pop it into the chat room now for everybody to see it, and I'll indeed put it on the archives for the show when I put it up there.
So speaking of the scumbaggery, to borrow your phrase, in New Zealand, one of my guests asked about a gentleman named Greg Hallett.
Oh yeah.
And what's your opinion on that? Because we obviously have. I mean, when it comes to child abuse and child sexual abuse and all of that pedophilia type of stuff, I mean, America is, again, it's basically, you might as well call it legal within government because it's protected by the courts and it's protected by I call them secret societies that make up the police and the courts. So what's going out there with this guy, Greg Hallett? What did happen?
Well, he's written a number of books, and he
had to leave New Zealand, right?
Did he? I don't know. I haven't spoken to Greg in a long time. I met him a couple of times. One time I met him outside the Auckland High Court at a protest, and he was telling me about how the police were shipping the drugs in and whatnot. But I asked Greg one time if he would come on my show, and he asked me how many visitors I had a month to my website, and he goes, "Nah, too small."
It is yeah.
Yes.
There's certain people out there that are like that, definitely.
Yeah. It's like, bro, it's not like people are clambering to frickin' interview you. You know? It's like you're talking about the pedophile rings and everything that run in this thing that can wind up getting them their shows cancelled and maybe get them killed and what have you, and somebody comes up and offers you a couple of hours of what have you to speak your piece and what have you, and you go, "Nah, too small." You know, it seems like me.
Well, and that's the point. You know, that's the point I was trying to make. Is there's too big, but there's not too small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's just I don't want to throw Greg under the bus, because he does a whole lot of good things. A lot of people criticise him and say that what he's saying isn't true and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if he's talking about scumbaggery, if he's talking about the and how it operates within society in any way, shape, or form, I'm never too much of an enemy of those kind of people. I mean, I may not like them personally or how they treat me and who they are as people, but for what they do and that kind of thing, then I'm fine with it. I mean, as long as you're not working for the scumbags and as long as you're exposing a little bit of scumbaggery, it's all right. Go for your life, son.
It's tough, though, because, I mean, gosh, go look in the newspaper. What's available as quote-unquote jobs, as busyness, what is available? It's basically, come work for scumbag number 15. We do banking. We commit usury that's how we make a profit. It's really tough to. I mean, I've been racking my brain on what I can do to legitimately, which is a word that doesn't even exist in America anymore, legitimately live, without the Federal Reserve note, I mean, it's so frustrating. It really is.
Yeah, life's a frustrating thing, and especially when you realise that your life is not your own and you're actually a slave that's on the frickin' stock market. It's a hell of a...
It is. It's a horrible realization.
Yeah, it is a horrible realization, and I think everybody should just go. You know what? Look, the situation's bad. Okay, we know it's bad, and
but it's been the same since pre-biblical times. It's been the same. It's the same thing over and over and over. Fractal, just like you said before.
Yeah. You're totally right. It's a fractal scumbaggery planet. All right, and one thing that I believe is actually really kind of valuable that I use constantly is the advent of humour. I mean, just even on a physical level with the endorphin rushes and things of that nature that cackling gives you, it actually is a way of disarming that fear, that paranoia, that depression, because look, you can't go from everything's hunky-dory in the entire world, you can trust your politicians, the police don't beat people up for no reason, the judges aren't corrupt, and the medical industry isn't the biggest killer in America, to finding out the truth that actually everything that you've been brought up to believe in your entire frickin' life is completely wrong, and you have to start again. It's like I spent all these years in high school and university and all of these jobs and everything that I learnt over the entire period of that time was BS. I have to start again. That's kind of like building your house and then accidentally burning it down when you were having a cigarette. It's pretty depressing. So you got to get over it. I mean, because that's actually pretty funny, that example that I do there. Great, we got the house all built and everything like that. Let's have a cigarette to celebrate. The whole thing goes up.
Well, I was writing about this actually. I was writing about going and rewatching George Carlin. I saw George Carlin live in, I think it was Bally's, Las Vegas, and I noticed that he wasn't funny when you see him live, and that the people in the audience, they actually add laugh tracks because the nature of his material is not funny at its heart. There's he does his other routines, but his political humor is not funny. It's truth right in your face, and wow. Well, Vinny, I want to thank you for coming on today. It was kind of an unrehearsed, just all-out fun fest, and I appreciate it. Again, Vinny Eastwood, theVinnyEastwoodShow.com and RealGorillaMedia.com. I'm going to probably, after the show tonight, after I have some dinner, I'm probably going to now that you brought up fractals, I'm probably going to go get stoned and watch some fractal videos. Just got to be honest.
There are worse fates.
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there you go.
Yeah, it's hopefully it won't stick. Hopefully I won't dream about it, but yeah.
In fact, it's funny you mentioned that. That's actually how I sleep. Is I'll close my eyes and I'll visualize. Those I don't know, it was a Windows media player or something like that, and it's got like a hole in the middle, and all the sound waves come out the edge, like you're going into a black hole, like a wormhole.
Absolutely.
Or something like that. That's what I do in order to get to sleep at night. Is I visualize a wormhole, and I try and push myself into it, and visualize me going through this wormhole. It just gets deeper and deeper, and eventually I fall asleep.
Yeah, I do the same thing actually, and it's interesting.
Well, that's weird.
I can see it better though. Again, on certain leafy
green vegetables.
Yes. So, but yeah, that's actually I try to do that too. I have horrible insomnia, unfortunately. I have one of those hyperactive minds that just keeps thinking of every possibility, and so it's a little tough to sleep for me. But
yeah, curling into a ball, help. Worrying about scumbaggery with the anxiety doesn't really help much. In fact, our very career choice is not good for sleep patterns, I've found, because you're often up long into the night. You know, the missus will come into the room, Vinny, come to bed. And I go, no, somebody on the internet is wrong.
Yeah, I'm in a chat room where 5 people are watching, and I'm having a major debate that's going to change the world.
We just don't have
funny that way.
Oh yeah. We just don't have a grip on reality. It's actually quite funny. I was looking through my Facebook block list, and I was like, "Holy cow! I've blocked a hell of a lot of people over the years."
Well, you know, I'm going through right now a weird kind of thing. I'm getting because I've been talking about Christianity. I've been talking about like true Christianity without the church, and just talking about the Bible itself and what it says. And how it affects the law. I mean, it actually is the law of the land. Once you realize what this thing is, it becomes such a powerful thing. You forget religion, forget all. You just the book itself is basically what all law is based on. So I've been talking about that and realizing that it's almost a remedy in law. And we're gonna even have a guest on about that. So now all of a sudden I'm getting what I can only call death cults contact me, and they're sending me these cryptic, fundamentalist messages that say basically the only solution to life is death. We must rid ourselves of the flesh so that we can be, journey on. And I'm like, my God, what are you talking about? So I'm getting all these crazy.
Isn't that ironic? Somebody who's still alive telling you that death is way better than life. How the hell would you know?
Right.
How about you volunteer, bro? You first go for your life, and then contact me from the afterlife via email, and then tell me how it is, brother. Don't tell me it beforehand, okay?
It's like you totally misrepresenting what the Bible actually says. That's fundamentalism, and that's what's being taught. Just like it's being taught in the media. Everything we're talking about, that's what's being taught in these corporate churches. It's to get people away from the realization of what that dang book actually says and why it's an authorized version, that it's the law.
See, they've done...
Oh, my God.
Here's what the word fundamentalist means, okay? They take out all the fun and just leave in all the being mental part. They're not fun people to hang around, I'm sorry. You're going to die, you're going to hell. It's like, I know, but, it doesn't mean I have to be worried about it, because then I'll be living in hell before I die as well. Frack that.
Well, yeah, see, but that's the thing. You find out what these words actually mean. You find out that hell is actually a legal term, and it means the prison under the executor for debt slaves who don't pay their debt. So yeah, you might be going there. That's the thing. You might be going there in life, not in death. That's the interesting part about it.
I say bring back the Jubilee, man. Every 50 years, all debts get cleared. Every 50 years, wipe the slate clean. That sounds like a brilliant idea to me.
But instead, we have every 70 years, it's a redeclaration of bankruptcy.
Hey.
Oh, wow.
See, this is my creative solution. Everybody's like, oh my God, we've got all this debt. And I go, how did the get there? Well, they made it up. Well, why don't we just forgive the debt, pretend that it doesn't exist? How about that? They're like, oh my God.
Oh, you mean we're the creator, so we can uncreate?
No. We're the ones who imagined all this stuff. So how about we just stop imagining it and start imagining something else? It doesn't really exist. It's not actually there. So frick it. There's nothing to tie it down in reality. We can just change it anytime we want. Kind of like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, and truth be told, it's not our debt. It's actually the corporation called United States debt. It has nothing to do with us. That we've just been fooled again through media conditioning, through school, to think that it's our debt. It has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, I was never there, man. I was never there. They signed those documents without my say so, man.
I'm extremely You know, every activist needs to do that from time to time. Just do that. Just get that exhausted, frustrated. Yeah, because look, everything pisses me off. All right, to a degree. It may not seem like it. I may seem like I've got a good coping mechanism, but at the end of the day, I am like this close to just flying off the handle and start screaming and yelling at people. Like honestly, that's what I am. I'm like on the razor blade of sanity at any given point, because everything's so frustrating. But on the other side of the things, there's so many wonderful things, so many wonderful people. I really hate talking with slave scum, but I love talking with people like you, who are just a normal slave like me, who doesn't like being a slave and whatnot, and actually wants to do something about it rather than just convince everybody else to go along to get along, and hopefully being exterminated will be a fun time. Maybe they'll have volleyball at the FEMA camps. You don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we'll see you there at the camps. It's kind of like
it'll be like a reunion.
It's going to be where the party's at. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
FEMA camp number 12, man.
Yeah, it'll be like that scene at the very end of Return of the Jedi where all the little Ewoks they're like playing drums on the discarded stormtrooper helmets. They got some.
All right. Stop.
My bad.
Stop. All right, tell people where they can find you again, because we're running out of time real quick.
All right, well, if you search Vinny Eastwood, ladies and gentlemen, that's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood as in go ahead, make my news, you'll probably find me at thevinnyeastwoodshow.com, Vincent Eastwood on YouTube, realgorillamedia.com. I also contribute to the USindependent.com, and you can find me on Facebook as well under Vinny Eastwood. And other than that, I think best way to contact me is actually through Facebook. I found... Ooh, excuse me, I'm having a little bit of a...
Grody.
Yeah, maybe I need a throaties or something like that,
Facebook, huh? Facebook, huh?
Yeah.
The ultimate slave.
I call it Fashbook. And it's basically just a place where you can suggest me guests and things of that nature. Maybe have a chat off air and whatnot. It's a good communication tool. It's far more. I'm far more likely to reply to you on Facebook than I am via email or Skype messages to a large degree. It's actually quite sad now that I think about it. But there you go.
Well, DARPA just called and said they're very happy to hear that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's nice. Yep. Well, the thing is, they surveil absolutely everything at all times anyway, so it doesn't actually matter whether you're on Facebook, Skype, email, doesn't matter. They know everything all the time, everywhere. So here's my philosophy, give them a good show.
That's basically what I tell people is don't try to protect yourself from it because it's already there. Globalism isn't on its way. It's already here. Everything's already here. Don't be afraid of it. It's already here. But maybe you could do something about it, right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm afraid that the evil New World Order will surveil me and know what I'm doing if I actually try and do something about the evil New World Order. So I'm not going to do anything about the evil New World Order, you frickin' idiot. Thanks, Clint. It's been awesome,
buddy. Man. Thanks again. VinnyEastwoodShow.com. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.